Hello, this is your composition and texture assignment for Art 120 illustration. Today we're going to be working with the homework assignment that we've already completed with the composition of the plants and adding some textures to this that we've also created ourselves. So texture is the tactile grain of surfaces and substances. And in design, texture can be both physical and virtual. So today we're going to be looking at applying some physical textures from the real world and applying them to a virtual drawing that we've created to give a sort of look and feel of a little bit more of a tactile quality to this sort of flat 2D element that we're working with. So what you see on screen here is something similar to what we're going to be creating for this project. We're going to be using our large sketch paper to sample at least 4 to 6 different textures from the world around us. If you're at school within the classroom, we're going to step outside and sample a few different textures. If you're somewhere else, you can do the same thing. And it's easiest to use charcoal for this, some sort of lightweight charcoal, in order to pick up those textures appropriately. So the idea is to lay your paper over some sort of texture found in the real world, whether that be a metal grate or some sort of bricks or tile, possibly some sort of stone, anything with some sort of texture on it that we can transfer onto the paper using the charcoal. And from the composition homework assignment that we've created, we're going to then apply these different textures to different areas or shapes within that composition, as well as some different colors. So let's get started. At this point, you should have your images or scans of your composition, as well as the textures. And when we open these up in Photoshop, there's a few steps that we want to follow first. So the first thing that we want to do is open up our textures and crop anything that we don't need within our actual image. For mine here, I've already kind of done that, but if you need to do that any further, you can use the crop tool over here and either change the size this way, or you can click and drag within the actual element as well. And once you're happy with the crop of your actual piece, I'll just tighten this up a little bit here on the bottom and on the left. We can just hit the enter button to apply that actual crop. Before you do that, though, you might have noticed that there is a lock on your layer. You might be seeing something like this when you first open up your file. If that is the case, you can just simply come over to this layer and hit the lock button to unlock that, and then we will be able to edit it further. So once we have unlocked our layer and we make our crop, then we're going to want to adjust our levels. I've already kind of done that to this particular drawing, or this image here, but if we come up here to Image, Adjustments, and Levels, we can actually bring down our darks a little bit and bring up our whites. And ideally, you want to bring your whites up so that the white paper is going to be pure white as well. Another way to do this is you can take your sample dropper over here for your white point and just click somewhere on your paper to assure that that is going to be pure white wherever that paper is. And then you can always adjust your midtones as well with your middle slider here. So on the left is going to be your darks, and then the middle is your midtones, and on the right is your whites, essentially. So once you're happy with this and you have a good contrast between your darks and your lights, you can go ahead and click OK. Sorry, I realized that wasn't on your screen right now. So these are your sliders here. I was using my white dropper here to click on the white areas to select that, and then you can change your darks with the slider all the way to the left, your midtones with the slider in the middle, and your highlights over here on the right. And again, once we're happy with the contrast, we can go ahead and click OK. And that should adjust your levels to give you a little bit more contrast throughout the actual piece. So at this point, we can go ahead and save this out. So I'm going to go up here to File, Save As. and I'm going to go ahead and save this out as a Photoshop. And I'm going to title this with my last name _ texture 1. And I'll go ahead and, there is no layers for this one, but we'll go ahead and leave that checked for now. Make sure you're putting it in the right spot you want to put that. And we'll go ahead and hit the save button there. I already have this file saved, so I'm going to go ahead and click replace. And it's bringing up this additional dialog box, which we can just click OK. So now we have that saved and we're ready to use these textures and bring them into our actual composition. So I'm going to go ahead and open up an image of my composition that I've taken. You can either scan in the image or take a picture. So from my Finder here, I'm just going to go ahead and drag that into Photoshop, my actual file. And in this case here, I need to do a rotation to this before I go any further. So if I come up here to Image and Image Rotation, I can see that I actually need to do this particular one 90-degree clockwise in order to get it straight. And now I'm going to go ahead and again crop my image to give me just the area that I need to focus on. So by using the crop tool here, I'm just going to bring these into the corners a little bit tighter. And I'm also going to actually rotate this a little bit. You can see that it's kind of on a little bit of a slant. So if I'm still within the crop tool and I bring my mouse out to the right, it gives me the option to rotate this, and I can kind of use the grid there provided to get that as straight as possible. So I'm going to go with something like that and maybe change that just ever so slightly. And that looks pretty good to me. I might bring this top down just a little bit. So once I'm happy with that, I'll go ahead and hit the Enter button to apply that crop. And now we're only working with this area that we need to. So again, once I've done that, I have my background layer here. And before I can make any edits, I need to actually unlock this. So I'm going to go ahead and click on my lock icon and unlock this so that I can make additional edits. And I'm going to do the same thing here and adjust my levels. So if I come up here to Adjustments, Levels, I again can see my slider bar here. And I'm going to do the same thing here. I want to make sure that some areas on the white part of the paper are going to be as white as possible. So I'm going to select my white sample eyedropper right here, which is all the way to the right. And I'm just going to go ahead and click into a sort of grayish area here. And you can see that there's still some areas that are a little bit grayer. And if I hit my Option key, it gives me the ability to see some of those areas that are pure white, as well as some areas that still have some sort of color. So if I actually hit my Option key, I can come down into one of these areas and say, well, I actually want this to be my whitest area. And you can see that it just starts reducing that more and more. And I'm just toggling on and off my Option button to see if there's still any areas of the paper that need to get fixed and sort of brought up to be brighter. So that's pretty good here. I have most of my areas are pretty white for my paper, but my black has lost a little bit of its quality. So I'm actually going to come back up here to my slider and go ahead and slide my darkest darks over a little bit, kind of right in the middle of that little hump that I have in this particular histogram for this image. And all of your histograms are going to be a little bit different. It just depends on the grayscale quality of the image. What works better is if you can take a picture or scan in the image and with decent sort of lighting where there's not some sort of big shadow coming in on the image. That's going to give you the best overall quality. So by sliding my darks up just a little bit more, I might even slide my midtones over to add a little bit more of a darker quality to some of those. And I'm pretty happy with that there, so I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And now I have a pretty nice contrast between my darks and my lights here. And I can actually go in and start applying some different color and applying some different textures to these different areas within the composition as well. So within this layer, with it being unlocked, I can actually come over here to the left and select my magic wand tool. And as long as I have contiguous checked up here, and maybe a tolerance of about 100. Tolerance is how much you want it to actually pick up on that particular area, so you can adjust that and play with that accordingly. But let's go ahead and start about 100. I'm going to have my anti-alias clicked on and also contiguous. What contiguous does is it's going to only select the shape or the color within that contrast. So for example, if I wanted to select this area here with continuous selected, I can go ahead and select just that area there. But if I deselected this by hitting Command D and unclicked contiguous, it's actually going to select all my areas of white there, not just the one that sort of has this border. So again, I'm going to Command D to deselect. You can also do that up here. And I'm going to make sure that contiguous is selected, so I'm just selecting that particular area within that composition. Now, within my layers palette, I can actually come down here to the fourth little icon over, and that's your create new fill or adjustment layer. And if I click on that, I'm going to go all the way up to the top and select solid color. And when I do that, it brings up this additional dialog box here where I can select a particular color, and anything that I want, I can select the particular hue over here on the slider on the right, and then the sort of value of that hue on the left over here. So once I select a color, I can go ahead and just click OK. And now we've applied that color to this particular area of the composition here using a clipping mask. So let's go ahead and do that one more time to another area within this composition. So I need to come back to the layer that has my actual artwork on it. And again, by using the magic wand, I'll select in an actual area, come over here to the fill layer, select solid color, and this time I'm going to change my color up a little bit here. And let's do it one more time. Again, I'm going to come down to my layer of my artwork, select in a different area, and if you've selected in one area of your artwork and you actually want to select in one additional, you can hold the shift button and click in both of those. You can see how by holding the shift and selecting in that additional area, it's actually grouping those two selections together. So again, I can come over here to my create new fill layer, go to solid color, and this time I'm going to add a little different hue as well. So I've added a few different colors to the actual composition, and in theory we would go through and create a fill for each one of these individual shapes within this composition. Now what I want to do is apply some textures within these compositions as well. So we need to bring in the previous file that we've created with the textures.